Lesson 14, the fort is captured but the lion is dead. My dear children, we know in the previous lesson that Shivaji signed the treaty of Purandar, and according to this treaty, 23 forts were handed over along with some gold coins to the Mughal emperor. So now this fort, Kondana, was one among these 23 forts, and it was a very, very strong fort. Now Shivaji and Jijamata were very worried about this. So let's see what happens in this lesson. Jijamata's wish. Now, as I told you that the 23 forts were handed over by Shivaji to the Mughals, and these forts were still in their hands, and Kondana was one of these, which was the strongest among all. And so Jijamata was very, very upset. She thought that it was not safe to keep such a strong fort in the hands of the enemy. And so she advised Shivaji, saying, Shivba, it's not safe to leave the strong Kondana fort in enemy's hands, and you need to recapture it. And Shivaji was also thinking on the same lines. That means he was thinking the same thing. He was also making plans how to recapture Kondana. Now, Shivaji started making plans. He started thinking, what shall we do? Whom shall we entrust with this task? That means, whom can we give the leadership to take care of this campaign? Tanaji Malusare. Tanaji Malusare was Shivaji's comrade. Who is a comrade? A comrade is a fellow soldier, a member of the army of Shivaji. Now, right from the beginning, he was with Shivaji, and he came from the village called Umrate near Mahad in the Konkan. Now, this great man, Tanaji Malusare, was a person who used to put his heart and soul in any task, any work given to him by Shivaji. Tanaji was a strong and well-built man, and not only that, he was clever as well as a brave person. He was passionately devoted to Shivaji. That means he would do anything for Shivaji. Kondana's marriage first. Now, what is the meaning of this Kondana's marriage first? How can you get Kondana married? It is the name of a fort. Isn't this the question that came to your mind? Yes, exactly. Now, what is the meaning of that? Tanaji, this brave man, was making preparations for his son's wedding. The name of his son was Raiba, and he was very busy with this work. And one fine day he thought, as he was preparing for his son's marriage, he said, let me go and give a personal invitation to Shivaji and Ma Sahib. Who is Ma Sahib? Ma Sahib is none other than Shivaji's mother, Jijamata. Now, the marriage was only 4 days away, and Tanaji went personally to invite Shivaji and Ma Sahib. He was also accompanied with Shelar Mama. Now, as he went there to meet Shivaji, to give a personal invitation, on receiving the invitation, Shivaji said to Shelar Mama, you go back and celebrate the wedding. Now, why is Shivaji saying so? He said, I'm sorry, I will be unable to attend the marriage because I have to lead a campaign to recapture Kondana. Now, when Shivaji said this, that I won't be able to come for the wedding of Raiba because I have to undertake or lead a campaign to recapture Kondana, Tanaji was very upset on hearing this. He said, how can you do this? This is a dangerous campaign, and why should you go there when I am alive? So I told you Tanaji was not only brave, clever, but also he was ready to do anything for Shivaji. And so he said that I am going to go and perform the marriage of Kondana by recapturing it, and Raiba's wedding can wait. And so he decided that he is going to lead the campaign to recapture Kondana and then come back and get his son Raiba married. Tanaji's plan. With these words of Tanaji, everybody there would really be happy, and so now Tanaji was in charge of this campaign to recapture Kondana. Now the fort of Kondana was under the control of Udaiban, a Rajput, and he was an officer who was appointed by Jai Singh. Now Udaiban was a disciplined person. He was very vigilant. That means he was very careful to see what is happening in and around the fort. And Kondana fort had 2 entrances. Okay, so the one entrance which was there, the main entrance, was heavily guarded. That means there were many guards who would look after that nobody comes in. And Tanaji, who was a very clever man, also was very, very clever to see the whole area properly. He inspected every detail of the fort. Now he saw that on the western side there was a steep precipice. That means there was a very, very steep rock. And there were no guards because it is difficult for anybody to climb on such a steep rock and enter into the fort. And therefore there were no guards. Now Tanaji decided to attack from this side of the fort. So he explained his plan to his younger brother. And he told his brother, you take 500 men and you reach the Kalyan gate. And with another 300, I will climb up the steep rock and I will get inside the fort. And as soon as we are there, we will open the doors of the Kalyan gate. Then what will you do? You step in and join us and we will together destroy the Mughals. So this was the plan. And Suryaji, his brother, said, okay, we will follow this. And both Suryaji and Tanaji went in different ways. Over the precipice and into the fort. It was a dark night. Now Tanaji and his men, they were gathered at the foot of that steep rock, difficult rock to climb on. Since it was night, it was dark and the sound of crickets could be heard all around. Now 5 or 6 members of Tanaji's group, what did they do? They slowly started climbing up this rock. It was high and it was dangerous, but somehow these brave soldiers managed to climb up this rock. They pushed their fingers into the rock crevices. Crevices means narrow opening, a small hole on the rock. And they began to climb up this difficult and dangerous rock. Slowly and surely, they reached the top. And as soon as they were on safe grounds, they tied a rope to a strong tree. And they let the rope down for the other soldiers to climb up and enter into the fort. Tanaji's valor. Now what happened? Suryaji, Tanaji's brother, he came to the Kalyan gate and he was waiting there for the doors to open. And the battle on the fort started. Why? Because the gates were thrown open. Now Tanaji brought in his soldiers from one side, and because of the commotion, the sound, the noise, Udaiban heard that there was an attack and the battle drums were sounded. That means the battle between both the army, both soldiers of Udaiban's side and Tanaji's side started. Now Udaiban's soldiers, they attacked Tanaji's men and a grim battle started. That is, a fierce battle started between both the soldiers. And how were they fighting? In the dark, in the light of dancing torches. Now the Mavlas opened the door of Kalyan gate and Tanaji was fighting like a brave lion. Udaiban attacked him and both the brave men were fighting in the battle. Now in the battle, Tanaji's shield was broken. You know that a shield is worn by the soldier to protect themselves. And the upper garment around his body was also torn apart. Now what did he do? He tied his garment on his hand and he continued to fight. In the end, both Tanaji and Udaiban were brutally wounded and they fell fighting on the ground. The fort is captured, but the lion is dead. With the death of Tanaji, the Mavlas found themselves without a leader. They were scared that their leader is dead. Now who will guide us? And so they started to run away. At that time, Suryaji, Tanaji's brother, arrived on the scene. That means he came to that place. Though he was very sad that his brother had already died in the battlefield, he did not waste time grieving over the dead body of his brother. What did he do? He continued to fight and he cut the rope through which the soldiers entered the fort through the very steep rock. Why? Because these Mavlas were scared that their leader was no more and they wanted to run away. But Suryaji, he said, "Can you be like cowards? Aren't you all ashamed? You are running away? Come on, turn back and fight, because I have cut the rope and you cannot go out any which ways. So you see, your father is lying dead over here on the battlefield. Go, either jump out from the steep rock to death, otherwise fight back and destroy the enemy." Now these words of Suryaji gave courage to the Mavlas, who started fighting, and a fierce battle raged. The Mavlas ultimately conquered the Kondana fort. Now, the joy of capturing the fort, though, was there in their hearts, but the brave lion-hearted leader, Tanaji, was dead. When Jijamata and Shivaji heard of this news, they were struck with grief. Shivaji was so sorrowful that he expressed himself in a single sentence, saying, "The fort is won, but the lion is dead." So, Kondana became Sinhagad in memory of the great warrior, that is, Tanaji. He was a lion-hearted man, a brave man, and so Kondana took the name Sinhagad. And even today, it is remembered by everyone. The brave deeds of Tanaji took place in the year 1670, the recapture of Kondana. Later on, what happened? Shivaji went personally to Umrate. Now, Umrate, we know, is the village of Tanaji. And so he went over there and performed the wedding of Tanaji's son, Raiba. Thank you.